I have a Malik Monk take after last night's game, and I had this take before last night's game, but last night helped underscore my point. And in talking about it with a couple of buddies, I think I have ironed out exactly what I mean.
Okay.
I think Malik Monk is the Kings' most important player.
Okay.
And I say that fully understanding and fully aware of what De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis both individually bring to the table. And frankly, what they bring to the table together.
Okay.
And I understand that they are the Kings' two best players, bar none. That is the case. And that is going to be the case night in and night out. But the reason Malik Monk is so important for the Kings to me is because you know what you're going to get 9 nights out of 10 from De'Aaron Fox.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, with this season, 99 nights out of 100. You know what you're going to get 99 nights out of 100 from Domantas Sabonis.
Yep.
That is your baseline as a team. That is your baseline as a, hey, that's a good NBA team. They're not going to be the worst team in the league. But just those two guys don't make you a playoff team.
Yeah.
And they certainly they don't make you a contender. And I don't think there's any two players in the league who do make you a contender by themselves. Malik Monk is what puts the Kings into a different level or onto a different level.
Okay.
Because when he plays like he does last night, where he is assertive offensively, where he is distributing and being that real like second point guard for them. And when I mean, anybody who scores 37 points is going to be helpful, but it doesn't even need to be 37. It could be 18. It could be 20. Mm-hmm. There is an energy he brings. There is a spark he brings. When his threes go down, there's a different pop in the arena. Like it's just the energy is just different when Malik Monk is on the court and when Malik Monk is rolling. And I think you see that with the crowd. I think you see that with the team. And Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox are great. Like undeniably all-star, all-NBA caliber players. Got it. The Kings this year, as constructed, are going to go as far as Malik Monk takes them.
Okay, I would say that it was the same last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think it's anything. It is the way this team was like successful last year was when Malik Monk brought the energy. They were different, and so I don't disagree with you. But I would also continue to argue this point with anyone who wants to bring it up because it gets brought up in my mentions all the time. The Kings are a better team with Malik Monk as the sixth guy coming in off the bench and changing the energy in the room.
100%. I agree with that.
He can go be a starter somewhere, and maybe that's what happens here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he goes on to be a starter and he's going to get an opportunity to run his own team. But his role in the NBA is likely as this 6-man type mentality, but a 6-man that can play 46 minutes in a game. He's not your standard 6-man who comes in and plays 18 minutes or 22 minutes.
Right.
Some nights, sure, he plays 22, 24 minutes,
mm-hmm.
but he's a guy that if he's rolling and if he's right, Mike Brown sticks with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris Duarte, he played 10 minutes last night. You know, he started, again, kung fu chopping everybody, and he went and sat down on the bench and didn't get to play again. You know, Kevin Huerter, he couldn't hit a shot at all. So, you know, he played 18 minutes. Davion Mitchell wasn't impactful when he came in the game.
Yep.
So you rode the Malik Monk train, and that's how Mike Brown has handled this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And like I can't fault that. Like I had a conversation years ago with Paul Westphal, and he said no coach in the league will put their best 5 players on the floor as their starting lineup.
Right.
And if they do, they just don't understand the dynamic of the game.
Well, right. Or your roster construction is screwed.
Yeah. Well, and this was coming from Paul Westphal, who at some point in his career was a 6-man,
mm-hmm.
you know, and a guy who averaged 25 points a game. Like this was a great score. He's like, no. You need someone to come in and change the complexity of the game, to change the energy, to score baskets in a different way than the rest of your team, to not have to play within the structure of a specific offense, to come in and freelance a little bit. You need that type of player. And that's what Malik Monk is. And I hope that he appreciates that. And I hope that like whatever it is that the Kings can pay him, well, I know what the Kings can pay him, but I hope that that's enough to keep him around long-term, because I really do think he's a very, very impactful player that makes the Kings a much better team.
And you saw it in each of the last 2 nights. I think you're right. This was the case last year, but to me, it really got highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
It was highlighted the last two nights in Malik Monk gets pulled after 5 minutes
Yeah.
and really struggles against Charlotte, and the Kings could never get it going against a bad team.
Yeah.
And last night, very good defensive team in Orlando, and Monk comes in and he hits his 5 threes in the second quarter. He scores 15 points. He finishes the night with 37 to go with his 9 assists.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, 37 and 9. If you go look at the players who have done that this year, I looked that up last night, who've gone at least 37 and 9 in a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's several guys a bunch of times, but like Jalen Brunson, Trae Young, Luka Doncic. I think LeBron has done it this year. Nikola Jokic has done it. The list is just a bunch of really, really good players. Like
Elite.
that's the level that Malik Monk can reach. And when he reaches that level, like, and again, I don't think he's not going to go average 30. That's not what I'm trying to say here.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is a world where Malik Monk can harness that, I don't want to say energy, can harness whatever he had last night, where he is a definitive number 2 scoring option. De'Aaron Fox doesn't have it tonight. Well, here's Malik Monk. Mm-hmm. De'Aaron Fox out for this game. Here's Malik Monk. And you're not going to miss a beat. If they're getting the version of Malik Monk that they got last night, and again, whether he's scoring 17 points or 37, I think they are way, way harder to beat.
Oh, I totally agree.
And it's just not, we talked about the pecking order thing a while back. Who's the Kings pecking order? It's Fox 1, Monk 2. In terms of get them the ball, go get a basket.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you need a basket, it's those two.
Yeah. And and again, maybe he goes and has 6 points on 1 of 10 in their next game.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know that you're getting some level of the Malik Monk they got last night, that again, as we talk trade deadline, for me, changes the calculus of, oh, hey, okay, maybe the player you go get, maybe you're getting a 2 guard. Let's just say a 2 guard, because that position's in shambles right now. Maybe you go get a starting 2 guard. That 2 guard now doesn't need to be DeJounte Murray. It doesn't need to be a guy who can go create his own shot.
No, I mean, that's why, in all honesty, it makes Kevin Huerter extremely expendable at this point, because it's not just Chris Duarte that can start. You can start Keon Ellis. You might be able to start Colby Jones. Like maybe after the All-Star break, maybe there's a possibility that you could start Colby Jones and have him play 16 to 18 minutes. Maybe even some nights he'll play 24 when he's got it defensively, when he's making the right moves. Some nights he won't. But you can start that type of player at the 2 as long as you have Monk coming in off the bench to do the other things. I think where you have problems is you have to have somebody else that can play with Monk and someone who's defensive minded and they can take on some of that. Whether that's Davion or whether it's one of these other players that we're already talking about. But like, I think there has to be a blend there, but it does make what's happening at the starting 2, like much more, you can take risks there. You can go with a defensive guy in Chris Duarte, or you can go with a shooter in Kevin Huerter, or you can go with some other random player. You can go with just like a Keon Ellis, who for me is more of just like an instigator, like a catalyst guy. You can do that. Because Malik Monk brings something different to the table.
Do you think so? My initial thought last night was, as Malik is hitting his 4th 3 in the third quarter, well, Mike Brown did it right. The tough love, pull him out, get the yelling match worked. But Mike Brown said after the game that that's not all that happened. It wasn't like that happened and then they came to work the next day and Malik went, I'm going to go score 37 and show you double birds. There was some amends making, it sounds like.
Yeah. So definitely what Mike said after the game was that following shoot around yesterday, he pulled Malik into his office and had a conversation. The first thing Mike said was, I should have coached him, which is a lot of what Damian Barling said yesterday on our show, and is what Damian said with D'Lo and KC. He said Mike Brown should not have just benched him. He should have like just had a coaching moment, right? And I agree that like there are different ways that you can handle a player.
Yeah.
But I think Mike is doing like hindsight a little bit. Like the fact that he pulled him into the office and that he apologized to Malik Monk for what happened. I'm sure Malik said, "Hey, look, I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have said something to you on the bench." Like the back and forth here, it's a good moment where again, it's a coaching moment, it's a teaching moment, all that stuff. I get it, but I don't agree that Mike Brown needs to say, "Yeah, I apologize," because that shows that Mike Brown is making sure that the media knows that we're okay. Me and Malik are okay. Like he's not going to leave the Kings in free agency because of this moment in time where we're not friends anymore.
Sure.
Right. So Mike has to say this and to a certain degree, but I also think it's a good moment for Mike to say, "Yeah, okay. Could I have handled it differently? Sure." But at the same time, like Malik is a straight up hooper. Like that dude is not a workout warrior. He's not a weight room warrior. I mean, sure, he goes and does his stuff that he's supposed to do, but he's not that guy. What he is a gym rat. He is in there shooting and going crazy and playing basketball all day long. I guarantee you, if you find Malik Monk during the summer months and you're like, "Where's Malik Monk?" You go, "Where's the local game?"
Right.
You show up at the local game and there's Malik Monk taking people's money. That's who Malik is.
Hey.
The only way,
Good,
but the only way for Mike, there's one thing that Malik cares about. It's not money. Sure, he wants money. It's not. It's the only thing you can do to impact Malik Monk is to take away the one thing he loves, and that is a game of basketball. That's how you do it. And like sometimes discipline comes in different ways, and you handle players differently. I get it. But at the same time, like I don't think that there's another way to handle Malik Monk in some of these situations. And that's okay.
Do you think that Mike Brown would have, knowing what he knows now, if he could go back and redo the Charlotte game, do you think he would do anything differently?
No. Like
I think he would.
I don't know. Like I mean the wins and loss matter. And Mike knows that and he's probably very upset with himself that they lost that game and that might have been a piece to it. But let's be honest, the game wasn't won and lost in the second quarter.
No doubt. I totally agree with you. But just from the, like you talk about Malik Monk loves basketball. I don't know Mike Brown personally, but I know people who have had extensive conversations with him and people who do know him. And Mike Brown loves coaching.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mike Brown loves to coach basketball. And so you brought up Malik Monk, and the thing you can do is you can take that away from him. I think Mike Brown probably regrets not taking that opportunity to be a coach. And I think that's what he would change. Maybe the outcome of the game doesn't change. Maybe Monk still goes out and has a bad game and goes and has a great game against the Magic. But I think that's why he would change it.
It's possible, but I would also tell you that I think in that situation, Mike was a coach. He chose a path. And I think that path that he took, like, it's okay. Like,
sit his ass down and yell at him?
Well, no, because from what I know, the exchange had happened afterwards when Mike came over in the third quarter and he came over and said something to Malik and then said, "Okay, we're done. Let's cool down." He goes to walk away and Malik said something to him again. And that's when Mike came back and then Jordy Fernandez stepped in. Like that whole situation could have been de-escalated. The first half, that 5 minutes where he plays 5 minutes, I don't know, like everyone is raised differently, right? So I had a situation where, we had to give a kid a ride to school one day. And we get, me and my son, we're driving. We stop by, my son's sitting next to me in the car. We stop by, we pick this kid up. He gets in the back seat and instantly starts telling us a story about how him and his sister were clowning his mom that morning. And she wanted him to do something. And they're just like, "Yeah, we're not doing that." And he just kept going on this story. And I look over at my son and my son's already looking at his friend and he goes, "Hey, you should probably stop telling that story." And I just look at my son. He goes, and I'm like, "Okay." He's like, and I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "That's not how we treat my mom in my house." And I was like, oh. And it's like, that's
Dang.
that's right. That's not how you treat your mom
Benched his
in
friend.
our house. And his friend was like, oh, he's like, hey,
Sure.
dude, that's disrespectful.
Sure.
We don't treat our mom like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right. And I said, and what would happen if you did? And my son's like, then I'd have to deal with you.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, exactly. You'd have to deal with me, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay. And his friend shut up right there. Like, oh, okay. Not
Okay.
inappropriate. So my point is that like each kid is like raised differently. They
Mhm.
have different things. But I will continue to say the one thing that you can do that would make Malik Monk feel it is to take away his minutes. It's the only thing you can do. Outside of that, I don't know. Because that's who he is. It's how he's raised. It's like what is in him. And so I don't think Mike Brown did anything wrong there. We could talk. There are plenty of things that Mike Brown probably wants to revisit in the last year of coaching, and whether it's like his handling of Kevin Huerter, or it's how he deals with his big man rotation, whatever it is.
Sure.
There are plenty of things that Mike Brown has done that he probably can second guess. That moment, I'm all right with it. Because the next game, that dude went out and scored 37 points and grabbed and dished out 9 assists and helped you win another ball game where you gave up 25 threes and you just didn't have it. And somehow you came out on top. And it was because you did some tough love and it worked with that kid. And good for you.
I love when Malik Monk just goes into bucket getting mode.
Yeah.
It's so fun. He had a guy. I wish I start writing this stuff down. I try and text you like some thoughts and notes that I want to remember. And the exact time of this, I forget. I think it was either fourth quarter or the first OT, but Monk at one point, he stand at the top of the key and just put the ball on the deck and got a blow by for an easy layup.
Yeah.
And I think I get so enamored. My favorite thing about Malik Monk is the audacity of some of the threes he takes.
I love it.
A guy in his face, a little sidestep, hand in the face, take a three. Falling out of bounds towards the baseline, going to put it up anyway. Like I love that part of his game. That I forget how explosive he can be with that first step. And the variety of ways he scored last night. Like, the 5 threes in the second quarter were great. And 7 of 13 from 3, you will take that from any player on any night. 90% of NBA players will never do that in their career.
Yeah.
Like, you love that. But the amount of times they needed a basket last night, and it was Malik Monk getting to the rack and not trying to do too much. I was not only just the numbers in the box score, but just the way he kind of managed the game down the stretch was, especially with De'Aaron Fox struggling to put the ball in the hoop. That was, I think, maybe even more impressive than the numbers.
Yeah, and that's why, again, you don't want to take away who Monk is as a player, right? You don't want to sit there and try to, like, put him in a box. That's not whatever you do with Malik Monk from here on out, you have to let Malik be who he is on the court. But when something's not right and the level of play or the energy or you can see it, like as Mike can see it as a coach, there's something he saw that he did not like about what Malik was doing on the court. And you can't pull Malik aside and say, hey, I need you to use the screen better. That's not what we're talking about. You can't take away who he is. You have to let him be who he is on the court. But there are times where he doesn't have who he is, and you need to regulate.